All right, go, start.
Alright, so this entire thing starts with the citizens. The citizens will work and pay taxes to their retainer. Their retainer owns the land that they live on. However, they do not own it in the usual way that most landowners would rent it out to the citizens. They are gifted it from their noble houses, which I did not write on the paper yet. The noble houses are appointed by the oligarchs and the ministries for different tasks. They marshal troops, they hoard taxes, and they give out many positions of power and employ many as a independent corporation and a country within a state. This nation is not a nation, it's actually a state because, keeping people there under their thumb unwillingly. Let me see. The retainer pays half of the tax to the economicus official, and they give the rest to their noble houses, which again I did not write down. Their noble houses then use it for public services. The point of a retainer is to keep a land profitable and have good ratings. For a retainer that cannot keep the region productive and producing tax for the government, or keep the citizens happy enough to give them good enough votes to stay, will be removed if the government decides that both the amount of votes as well as the amount of productiveness is dwarfed by others. In other words, this is a very competitive business, these nobles. They're to be treated more like a corporation as opposed to a part of the government. However, yes, they are a very important part of the government. They maintain the land and service the citizens, so even if the government decides to only strengthen their own power with the tax money they receive from the citizens are still well and cared for by the many noble houses that span the land and are reliant on the people being happy and producing to stay alive, and therefore half or more of the tax money at least will go to public services and maintaining the quality of life for the citizens.
Where are you in the map right now?
Huh?
Where are you?
Just this tiny little region.
Oh my god, we're gonna have to go through all this, though, right?
I know. I just left out a massive chunk out of this paper. Remember I said expansion?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so the economicus official is my version of a tax collector. I do not want to call them a tax collector because they're extremely general purpose and they run the economy. And by run the economy, I mean they run the economic regulation parts of it and monitoring graphs and charts to make sure that one company is not a pyramid scheme in the making. The tax then goes straight to the Ministry of the Economicus, known as the Ministry of the Economy, officially at least, which then gives that money to the oligarchs and the chancellor, which again I forgot to write down, who then decide on their situation. Then they will split it evenly. Well, they will then decide on a budget to split it between three big ministries. The Ministry of Balaam. Balaam is finished for war. The Ministry of...
It's pouring?
Look out.
Oh, shoot, no. My car... Here, keep going, Kai. Keep
You
going.
left your car open?
Over here.
No.
So, the Ministry of Economicus, and then to the Ministry of Administratum. Well, administration. The Ministry of Balaam, as well as the other ministries, splits the money between the miniature ministries that lie within them. For the Ministry of Balaam, you have the Ministry of the Navy, the Ministry of the Intelligence Forces, the Ministry of Armatia, which is Finnish for army, as well as mixing in some of my own artistic ideas.
What is it?
Shopped. Oh yeah, and the Ministry of Iritian, which is a converted Finnish word, I believe either for special or forces, I forget, but the point is it is special forces.
Mm-hmm.
I also forgot to leave out some very, very, very key areas of the government, such as the Inquisition, Imperial Guard.
All right, well, let's stick to the graph. Let's get through this graph.
So, the three highest officers of the military are the Oligarch of Militum, as well as their war masters. They run the military and decide everything with final say. Then you have the strategos, which decide on every tactical and strategic plan possible, as well as a comitia, which is a military official responsible for drafting men and monitoring attrition to keep wars in the government's favor. That covers the militum administratum. But under that, you have the military. Oh no, you start with the soldier, commanding a unit of 1 themselves. They fight for the state. They are then led by a retainer who commands a unit of 10. Then they report to a lieutenant, commands a platoon of 30, a platoon of 20, who then reports to a commander/captain who commands salvo, which can either be used as a garrisoning force, which can be marked up to many sizes above, or as a frontline force in the form of a captain. That covers the non-commissioned class, but now you must go on to the commissioned officers, the officers who do not fight directly on the field with their fellow soldiers. These ones are given higher pay and more safety. The Eversti, which is actually Finnish, commands Vexian, which is actually Latin, of 1,000 men, who then, actually, I say men, women, and men.
No, I know what you mean.
Because I figured that double
No,
workforce
it's the
would be
generic
best.
men. You can't keep saying over and over men and women. So men is
Anyway,
fine.
so then they report to a scion who commands a division, the standard unit in the empire of 10,000 men. They are the strongest unit. They march around in small divisions to go attack and engage enemies wherever the enemies are. However, if a stronger force is needed and the empire's life is at stake, they can pool all of their forces together into a massive armatia, commanded by a Cylon, elected by the Scions and approved by the War Masters in Strategia and Strategue. They command a monstrous army of 100,000. This monstrous force is able to take down any enemy force with impunity unless matched with overwhelming odds. Down to the ministry officiales, you have the servant AVAX, who are made up of volunteers and prisoners of war, as well as common criminals. As a replacement for a slave class, they are treated well, given payment. However, the payment will be below a standard wage, and however, they will be provided for by the government. The only reason for becoming an AVAX is for having debt for the government. If a crime has been committed against a person, say a guy murders somebody else, then the government will pay debt by giving that family money for the murder in return. Meanwhile, that means that the AVAX's debt now goes straight to the government, and they must work for their freedom. AVAXs are also are not treated as scum or lowlifes, but instead as full citizens in good standing, as many volunteers and integration immigrants serve as AVAXs to be integrated into the wider empire. Above them is the official. They are the workhorses of the government. They do all of the paperwork. However, official is a very general term and covers most government positions. At the next highest realm of the Ministorum Officialis, you have the revisor. They are this version of accountant. They keep control of many records, and they reign over many hoards of informations in libraries as well as texts. They keep the records of the government. Above them can be any number of officials. However, I did not think to write them down yet. Again, incomplete. That will cover most of the Ministry of Belum's means. Below them, you have the Ministry of Economicus, which is
where is it? Okay.
known informally as the Economicus. The Economicus is no doubt one of the biggest important branches. They keep the revenue coming, while the Ministry of Belum may keep the army standing and keep the state running on a war. The Ministry of Economicus keeps the nation running by supplying the treasure that the nation desperately needs to function. Underneath them, you have the Ministry of Welfare, which then has two more sub-ministries, which is the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Health, as well as many others. Also under the Economicus is the Ministry of Industry, which reigns over many, many, many businesses and is in charge of regulating many a tycoon-turned-pyramid scheme. Also under them is the Ministry of Officials, dedicated to keeping the nation orderly and the treasure coming despite attempts at dodging the tax. Now, arguably the most important and powerful of all of the ministries, the Ministry of Administration. Under them is the Ministry of Intelligence, imposed to gather intelligence about everything and everyone. The Ministry of Administratum is not just for keeping order within the ranks of history, but also at keeping all the rival ministries together, as each ministry competes for funds and for power and for popularity among workers. They have many a factional infight, but ministries may fight, but the Ministry of Administration is incorruptible from their very design and keeps everyone together as the web that keeps every piece of the government from falling apart. Also under them is a Ministorum Ecclesiarchi, known informally as the Ecclesiarchy. They manage the entirety of the religion, responsible for keeping the faith in good order, hiring all the priests, and collecting tithes from the citizens who decide to commit themselves. Also under them is the Ministry of Order, responsible for keeping law and enforcing it. Under them, the first ones, the enforcers. You have the Ordinatorum, soldier. They enforce law and order. They are soldiers. They are usually soldiers in times of peace, as police are not viewed as a necessary option, as soldiers review the task of keeping law and order. Above them, you have the praetor captain, who organize enforcement. They are the ones who order everyone around. They manage a crime scene as a commander would a battlefield. They go under the Ministorum Lexum. Also under this is a Ministorum
Where is it?
Ministorum Ordos.
Uh-huh.
This is important for administering justice. You have the service, who functions as a lawyer, a opificem, who